Regime changes can go two ways. It can either reverse old policies or double down on them. In Iran, it is clear which way the regime is going. No more half measures, no more stop-start diplomacy. Iran's new president means business. But what does that mean for West Asia? A lot of uncertainty and instability. For starters, Iran's regional allies are emboldened, or should I say proxies, the likes of Hezbollah and the Houthis. For them, Ebrahim Raisi's presidency is a triumph. The Hezbollah chief described the new president as a shield against Israel. They may soon need that shield, because the Israel-Lebanon border is flaring up. It all started on Wednesday. Rockets from southern Lebanon hit open targets in Israel. Nobody claimed the attack. But southern Lebanon is a Hezbollah stronghold. So Israel retaliated. For the first time in 7 years, they launched an airstrike on Lebanon, the Israelis. The Israeli military says that they hit Hezbollah launch sites. But the Lebanese president disagrees. He says the rockets hit Lebanese villages and was a clear indication of aggressive intent. So how did Lebanon respond? Well, the government did not, but the Hezbollah did. They fired a dozen rockets at the Sheba Farms district. Now, this is a disputed territory, but Israel has controlled it since 1981. For the Hezbollah, this is a major escalation. They haven't openly claimed an attack on Israel since 2019. Clearly, they're emboldened. The question is, what is their source of confidence? A big factor is the new ally in Tehran. Ebrahim Raisi is a protege of the supreme leader. His election was less about democracy, more about fate. Let me tell you why. Iran's Islamic revolution is nearly 42 years old. A lot has changed in this time. For instance, how do you describe modern-day Iran? An Islamic democracy or a managed theocracy? The fact is, the Islamic revolution is losing steam. The so-called Iranian model is not working. So what does Tehran do? Revive the spirit of the Islamic Republic. And Ebrahim Raisi is the perfect man for this job. He was a foot soldier of the revolution. He has the Ayatollah's confidence. And he is a victim of Western sanctions. But don't expect Raisi to change Iran's fortunes, because those are factors that are beyond his control. But foreign relations, that's where Raisi will stamp his authority. Take his swearing in, for instance. Both Hamas and Hezbollah sent their delegates. Hamas was represented by its chief, Ismail Haniyeh. Hezbollah sent their second-in-command, Naim Qasim. Both groups would have attended irrespective of who was being sworn in, but they're clearly ecstatic about Raisi. Hamas urged the new president to strengthen Iran's commitment to the Palestinian cause. The Islamic Jihad from Gaza also congratulated him. Remember, these are not just Iranian proxies. For most of the world, these are terrorists. And right now, both groups have their guns trained on Israel. So what's the mood in Tel Aviv? Raisi's election was definitely a blow for Israel. Prime Minister Naftali Bennett called him a hangman. Now, don't get me wrong. Israel-Iran relations were always hopeless, totally unsalvageable. But this new regime will embolden proxies, which means more border flare-ups, more saber-rattling, more instability. In fact, the entire Arab world is apprehensive of Raisi. He has ruled out meeting US President Joe Biden. He says Iran's missile program is non-negotiable, but he presides over a failing economy and a restive population. That's a recipe for political disaster. What's happening at the Israel-Lebanon border could just be a sneak peek. The United Nations says the situation is very dangerous. It could spiral out of control in days. We've already seen that happen in Gaza. The problem here is the lack of restraint. There are new regimes in Iran and Israel, but the policies have not changed. And if anything, both sides are more emboldened. Last week, an Israeli ship was attacked off the coast of Oman. Israel blames Iran for the strike. Now we have Iranian proxies attacking Israel and Israel responding in kind. Clearly, regime change has not worked. The new leaders have come with a renewed appetite, not for peace, but for war. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.